false prophets. And I never knew this. You can read this in a double volume by Abraham Joshua Heschel. He wrote an incredible, I think one of the best volumes ever out on prophets. And if you want to get it, it's incredibly written. And he takes you through how what false prophets were all the kings had their own prophets. And God called them false prophets. And most of the kings knew they were false prophets. And you know how they knew they were false prophets? Many of the kings you'll see in the Bible, you ever remember how they'd go, "Get me a real prophet." Whenever the king needed a real prophet, they said, "Get all these." They knew there were false prophets around them. You know what false prophets do? They blow air. And they just tell the king whatever the king wants to hear. Instead of telling the king what the king needs to hear. And, I was just watching a special at 3:30 in the morning on President Bush was getting interviewed by somebody, and we were watching it and couldn't sleep. And so we're watching him, and he said, I'm really looking forward when somebody comes into the Oval Office to not waste my time by trying to please me. What I'm really looking for somebody to do is walk in here and just say, "This is what I think, Mr. President. This is my thoughts." President Bush has always been very open to the prophetic, even from the church. But you know what? Much of it is closed off because all the prophets come in and they're all like, "Woo, Mr. President." They're so happy to be there that they can no longer prophesy the truth. So I've heard from a lot of sources that he's just stopped, except for just a few, he's just stopped allowing them to come because they're just like roller coasters in there. Now, what does that have to do with true prophecy? It's speaking the heart of the Father right now, right in the place. And you know what? When we're trying to cover up our sin because of shame, we don't get anywhere. I'll speak on that today a little bit. Oh yeah, that's what I said. All these prophets that were saying that Katrina was judgment against America, secular society. I think it was a judgment against the church. I think it was God waking up the church and saying, "I'm going to show you a physical sign of what's happening in the church. I'm going to go into the deep crevices, dark, secret places that none of y'all know about, and I'm going to begin to cleanse it. I'm going to just wash it out, and you're all going to see what's really there." And so we wrote this song. It's just a prayer. It's called Haley's Prayer. Are you clear on that I'm not making a judgment against somebody that's divorced? What I'm making a judgment against is us trying to cover it up and tell the children, "Don't talk about your pain." We've just become so self-centered. The reality is that you can be divorced, but you have to, at one point in time, in all kinds of things. One point in time, come face to face with the reality. I mean, why do divorced people divorce people? Why is that the reality? Reality is they keep divorcing. And for men, it seems like the statistics are that they'll divorce up to 3 times, and then they seem to be faithful on their 4th. Why do you think? Because probably they come to realize that it's not getting any better. Probably they're coming to realize that they're the problem. Can I get an amen? No, you don't even have to give me an amen. I know, listen. interesting. We just went through this marriage seminar, my wife and I, and my father-in-law sat with us, and he had tears coming down his face, and he told us this. He said, in the 70s, the divorce rate in the church was so minimal that people didn't even talk about it. Isn't it interesting that almost simultaneously to the church becoming relevant to culture, our divorce rate is not only as high as in the world, it's the same. I don't think that's a coincidence. We're getting our marching orders not from the kingdom of heaven, but from the world. If it's too painful to deal with, in the church we do the same thing. If it's too painful, if it's going to change you, if it's going to shake you, leave. Find somewhere else. And what I said in the first night is, when we fashion God into that kind of form that it no longer disturbs our humanity, He no longer disturbs who we really are, then we fashion God into a form and He becomes our shadow. And so, but He's kind of, I think God is just, I can't speak for God really, but as I'm watching His movements, what I've started to notice is what He's doing is, it's almost like He's just had it. Not because He doesn't love us, but He's had it for His children. For people like Haley that jump off of buildings because you can't share your pain anymore. And then her only brother, a church leader would actually say, keep your mouth shut. Don't talk about your parents' problems. Don't talk about your issues. Don't talk about the pain. Just cover it up and pretend like it never existed. And then it'll just go away. So I say all that to say that I guess the church is a place for the unhealthy. And I think what we're seeing right now is the world's judgment is because we're trying to pretend like we're healthy and that we have to be healthy to be the apple of God's eye. And that's not the way Jesus saw it. He said that we had to be broken with a contrite heart. He didn't say we had to be healthy or even right. Isn't that freeing? You don't have to be right. We are crying for